The Grand Cartography was the pride of the Galactic Consortium. It floated in the center of the council hall like a dream made real. 3 kilometers of glowing light showed every star, every planet, every moon that the consortium had discovered in 12,000 years. Ambassador Velketh had seen it 1,000 times, but it still made his heart beat faster. He walked slowly around the massive hologram, his clawed feet clicking on the crystal floor. His scales were gray with age now, and his eyes were not as sharp as they once were. But he could still see the edge, the place where the map ended, the shroud. It looked like someone had taken a knife and cut away a piece of the galaxy. Where there should have been stars, there was only black. Not the black of empty space where you could still see distant lights. This was true darkness. Absolute. Complete. Nothing came out of it. Nothing went in and returned. For 12,000 years, the consortium had sent probes into the shroud. None came back. They sent ships with brave crews who volunteered for glory. None came back. They aimed their most powerful sensors at it and saw nothing. They tried everything their science could imagine, and the shroud kept its secrets. Most believed it was a natural thing, perhaps a region where stars had all died long ago, perhaps a place where the laws of physics worked differently. Some said it was a wound in space itself, a place where reality had simply stopped existing. Velketh had believed these explanations. He had accepted that some mysteries were not meant to be solved. The galaxy was large enough without whatever lay beyond that wall of darkness. Then the ships came. He remembered the day clearly. He had been in his office, reviewing trade agreements, when his assistant burst through the door. The young creature's 4 eyes were wide with shock. "Ambassador, you must come to the observation deck. Ships have appeared at the border. Ships from the shroud." Velketh had not believed it at first, but he went, and he saw, and his world changed forever. The ships were strange. They did not look like any vessel the consortium had ever built. Where consortium ships were smooth and elegant, these were angular and rough. They looked like they had been made for war, with thick armor and weapons that bristled from every surface. But the strangest thing was how they moved. They did not seem to push through space like normal ships. Instead, space seemed to bend around them, folding and twisting as they passed. There were 12 ships in total. They stopped at the border and simply waited. The council argued for 3 days about what to do. Some wanted to destroy the ships. Others wanted to run away. Finally, Velketh convinced them to do the only sensible thing. They would talk. He was chosen to make first contact. He boarded a shuttle alone and flew toward the alien fleet. His heart pounded the entire way. When he docked with the largest ship, he expected to meet monsters, creatures of nightmare from beyond the edge of reality. Instead, he met humans. They were soft creatures. No scales, no shells, no natural armor of any kind. Their skin was thin and easily damaged. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They were small compared to most consortium species. Looking at them, Velketh could not understand how they had survived at all. They seemed designed to die. But then he looked into their eyes and he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. There was something in those eyes, something hard and sharp and unbreaking. These creatures had seen terrible things. They had done terrible things, and they had survived. Their leader was a female named Chen. She was older than the others, with lines on her face and gray in her hair. She spoke through a translation device that turned her words into sounds Velketh could understand. "We come in peace," she said, "but we also come with warning." Velketh had heard such words before. Every species said them when they wanted something. "What do you want?" he asked. "Safety," Chen said. "For our people. For the ones who chose to leave." "Leave what? Where do you come from?" Chen smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "We come from beyond your shroud. We come from human space." Velketh's mind struggled to understand. "You live beyond the darkness? That is impossible. Nothing can survive there." "Nothing from your side can enter," Chen corrected. "That is not the same thing. We built the shroud. It is our wall, our protection." The words hit Velketh like a physical blow. He took a step back, his claws scraping the metal floor. "You built it? You created a barrier across an entire arm of the galaxy?" "We had to. Chen said. When we first found your consortium, we were young, weak. We had only just learned to travel between stars. We watched your people for many years and we learned an important lesson. What lesson? That the galaxy is not kind to the weak. That older species prey on younger ones. That if we revealed ourselves, we would be enslaved or destroyed. Chen's eyes grew hard. We decided that would not happen to us, so we built our wall and hid behind it. Velketh thought of the consortium's history, the species that had been conquered, the worlds that had been stripped of resources, the peoples that existed now only in memory. Chen was not wrong. Why reveal yourselves now, he asked. Why leave your hiding place? Because we are not hiding anymore, Chen said. Because things have changed. What things? Chen walked to a window and looked out at the stars. Her people gathered behind her, silent and watchful. Velketh noticed that many of them carried weapons even here, even in this peaceful meeting. They were ready for violence at any moment. Not because they wanted it, but because they expected it. We did not hide because we were afraid, Chen said quietly. We hid because we needed time. Time to grow. Time to build. Time to prepare. Prepare for what? Chen turned back to face him. In her eyes, Velketh saw something that made his blood run cold. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was certainty. The absolute belief that whatever came next, her people would survive it. War, she said. We have been at war for 50 years now. A war your consortium knows nothing about. A war that is coming to your space whether you are ready or not. Velketh felt the universe shift beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew was wrong. The shroud was not a mystery, it was a fortress. And behind that fortress, hidden for centuries, humanity had been fighting battles the consortium could not imagine. What war? He whispered. Chen smiled that cold smile again. The one we are winning. Yineth Sul had wanted to be a cartographer since she was a small child, while other children played games and chased each other through the gardens. She had sat alone with maps. She traced the lines of trade routes with her thin fingers. She memorized the names of distant stars. She dreamed of the day when she would add her own discoveries to the grand cartography. Now she was 30 years old, a junior member of the mapping division, and she had been given the most important assignment of her life. The council wanted someone to study the human refugees, someone to learn everything about where they came from and what they knew, someone young enough to have fresh eyes and old enough to be trusted. They chose Yineth Sul. She met with Ambassador Chen in a small room on the human flagship. The room was simple and plain, with metal walls and hard chairs. Humans did not seem to care much about comfort. Everything they built was practical first and pleasant second. Chen sat across from her, drinking a dark liquid that smelled bitter and strong. The human called it coffee. She seemed to need it to stay awake, which Yineth Sul found strange. Did humans not sleep enough? You want to know about human space, Chen said. It was not a question. Yes, Yineth Sul replied. She had her recording device ready, her questions prepared. She had spent 3 days getting ready for this meeting. The council needs to understand the geography of the region beyond the shroud. How many systems? How many planets? What resources exist there? Chen laughed. It was a short, harsh sound. You think I am going to give you a map of our territory? Yineth Sul felt her face flush with embarrassment. I thought, since we are potential allies. Potential allies, Chen repeated. Yes, potential. That means not yet certain. My people learned long ago not to give away secrets too quickly. She took another drink of her coffee. But I will tell you some things. Enough to help you understand what you are dealing with. Thank you. Chen set down her cup and looked directly at Yineth Sul. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they seemed to see everything. 312 years ago, humanity sent its first ship beyond our home system. We were so excited, so full of hope. We thought the universe would welcome us. It did not. It tried to eat us. Chen's voice was flat, without emotion. Within 10 years, we discovered the consortium. We watched from far away, hidden in the dark between stars. We saw how your older species treated the younger ones, how the strong took what they wanted from the weak, how entire civilizations were used as slaves or food or fuel. Yineth Sul wanted to argue, but she could not. The history was true. The consortium had not always been peaceful. Even now, there were species that lived in service to others, their freedom a distant memory. We had a choice, Chen continued. We could reveal ourselves and hope for the best, or we could hide and prepare for the worst. Our leaders chose hiding. And you built the shroud, Chen nodded. It took us 80 years. We found a way to collapse space-time into a barrier that nothing could cross. Light, matter, signals, everything stopped at the wall. From outside, our entire territory became invisible. Just darkness on your maps. Yineth Sol thought about this. 80 years of work, an engineering project so vast that it covered thousands of light years. The resources required were beyond anything she could calculate. What did you do behind the wall, she asked. We grew. Chen stood up and walked to a small window. Outside, stars burned cold and distant. When we built the shroud, humanity lived on 47 worlds. We had maybe 2 billion people. We were children taking our first steps. And now? Chen turned back to face her. Now we have 472 inhabited systems, 38 billion people, and that was the count before the expansion program began. Yineth Sol dropped her recording device. It clattered on the metal floor. But she did not pick it up. Her mind could not process the numbers. 400 systems, 38 billion people, hidden behind a wall of darkness for 3 centuries. That is impossible, she whispered. Why? Because your consortium has only discovered 300 systems in 12,000 years? Chen shook her head. Your people explore slowly. You are careful. You build one colony and wait a century before building another. Humans are not like that. How are humans different? Chen smiled, and for the first time there was warmth in it. We are impatient. We want everything now, not later. When we found a good planet, we did not wait. We sent millions of people immediately. When we needed resources, we did not mine slowly and carefully. We tore apart moons and asteroids and took everything we needed. When our population grew too large for one world, we built new worlds, artificial habitats, space stations the size of continents. Yineth Sol tried to imagine it. A species that expanded not over thousands of years, but over decades. That built not one colony at a time, but dozens. That saw the universe not as something to respect, but as something to use. You are not like any species we have met, she said quietly. No, Chen agreed. We are not. And that is why we are still alive. She walked back to her chair and sat down. Her face became serious again. We did not hide just to grow. We hid to prepare. We knew that someday something would find us, something powerful and dangerous. So we built weapons. We trained soldiers. We turned our entire civilization into a machine that could fight and survive. The war you mentioned. Who are you fighting? Chen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with something that might have been fear, or might have been hate. We call them the Harvesters. They come from the deep core of the galaxy, where stars are old and space is strange. Every 10,000 years, they sweep through the galaxy and destroy any civilization that has grown too large. Your consortium has survived only because you stayed small and weak. You paid them tribute. You gave them what they wanted. You bowed down. I have never heard of these harvesters. Of course not. Your leaders keep it secret. They tell you that the galaxy is peaceful, that the consortium brings order. They do not mention the price of that peace. Chen leaned forward. 50 years ago, the harvesters came to human space. They expected to find easy prey, soft creatures hiding in the dark. What did they find? Chen's eyes burned with fierce pride. They found us waiting for them. They found 3 centuries of preparation. They found weapons they had never seen and tactics they could not understand. They found a species that refused to bow. Yineth Sol sat in silence, her mind racing. Everything she had been taught was a lie. The maps she loved were incomplete. The peace she believed in was paid for in blood and submission. The harvesters are losing, Chen said. We are pushing them back. But they are retreating toward your space, toward the consortium. Soon they will come here, and they will be angry. They will want to destroy everything in their path. What can we do? Chen reached across the table and took Yineth Sol's hand. Her grip was warm and strong. You can fight, she said. You can stand with us, or you can die on your knees like all the others. The choice is yours. Yeneth Sol looked down at the hand holding hers. Such a simple thing, such a small gesture. But in that moment, she felt something change inside her. The careful, quiet cartographer who loved maps and hated conflict was gone. In her place was someone new, someone ready to learn what lay beyond the darkness. Teach me, she said. The council chamber was full for the first time in 200 years. Every species that belonged to the consortium had sent their highest leaders. They sat in rings around the central platform, hundreds of different creatures from hundreds of different worlds. Some were tall and thin, with bodies like bent trees. Others were short and round, covered in thick fur. Some breathed air, others breathed methane or liquid nitrogen. They were all different, but today they shared one thing: fear. Ambassador Velkath stood at the center of the platform, next to Admiral Chen. The human woman looked small and fragile compared to the massive aliens around her, but no one in the room made the mistake of thinking she was weak. They had all seen the recordings. They had all watched human ships tear apart enemies twice their size. You have heard the reports, Velkath said, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the chamber. You have seen the evidence. The harvesters are real, and they are coming. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some of the older species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They remembered the last harvest 10,000 years ago. They remembered the worlds that burned and the peoples that died. For too long, we have pretended that the harvesters were just a legend, Velkath continued. For too long, we have paid tribute and told ourselves it was the price of peace. But peace bought with submission is not peace. It is slavery. A voice called out from the crowd. It belonged to High Elder Vorith, leader of the Kalenthi. His species was one of the oldest in the consortium, and his word carried great weight. What would you have us do, Ambassador? Fight against enemies who have destroyed countless civilizations? Throw away our lives for nothing? Admiral Chen stepped forward. She did not raise her voice, but somehow it carried to every corner of the room. You think fighting is throwing away your lives. We think surrender is throwing away your souls. Silence fell. No one in the chamber had ever heard anyone speak to High Elder Vorith that way. You have survived 10,000 years by being small, Chen continued, by hiding, by giving the harvesters whatever they wanted. But let me ask you something. How many species used to belong to this consortium? How many worlds used to shine with life that are now dark and dead? No one answered. They all knew the truth. The consortium had once been much larger, much stronger. But each time the harvesters came, more was lost. You are dying slowly, Chen said. One piece at a time, one tribute at a time. In another 10,000 years, there will be nothing left of you. Your children's children will be born as slaves, if they are born at all. High Elder Vorith's old face twisted with anger. And what makes you think you can do better? You are young. You have only existed for a few centuries. The harvesters have been killing civilizations for millions of years. Chen smiled. It was not a kind smile. Because we do not accept death. We do not bow. We do not surrender. When the harvesters came to our space, we met them with weapons they had never seen. We fought them in ways they could not understand, and we are winning. She raised her hand and a hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a map of human space, but it was covered with symbols that the consortium leaders did not recognize. Battle markers, fleet positions, enemy movements. In 50 years of war, we have destroyed over 8,000 harvester vessels. We have retaken 12 systems that they occupied. We have killed millions of their soldiers. Chen pointed at a cluster of red symbols near the edge of the map. This is their main fleet, 60,000 ships, the largest force they have gathered in 10,000 years, and they are running. The chamber erupted in noise. Some leaders shouted in disbelief. Others demanded proof. A few simply sat in shocked silence, unable to process what they were hearing. Velkath raised his hands for quiet. We have verified the human claims. Our own sensors have detected the approaching fleet. They will reach consortium space in approximately 3 months. Then we must prepare tribute, someone called out. We must gather what they want and offer it to them. They do not want tribute anymore, Chen said. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. They want revenge. We have hurt them badly. We have shown them that they can be beaten. They will never forgive that. When they reach your space, they will not accept your surrender. They will destroy you simply to prove that resistance is useless. Fear spread through the chamber like a disease. Velketh could see it in the eyes of his fellow leaders. They were remembering old stories, tales of worlds stripped bare, of species erased from existence, of horrors that defied imagination. There is another choice, Chen said. You can stand with us, join our fleet, fight beside us. Together we can break them forever. High Elder Voreth laughed bitterly. You want us to join your war? To die for your cause? I want you to live for your own cause, Chen replied. I want you to show your children that you are more than cowards, that when darkness came, you stood up and faced it. She stepped closer to the old alien, her small body casting a shadow that seemed much larger than it should be. I am not asking you to trust us. I am not asking you to like us. I am asking you to survive. And the only way to survive is to fight. The chamber was silent. Every leader was thinking, calculating, weighing the risks. Velketh watched their faces and saw the war happening behind their eyes. Fear against hope, tradition against change, death against life. Finally, High Elder Voreth spoke. His voice was tired, but beneath the tiredness was something new. Something Velketh had not heard in a very long time. Determination. If we do this, the old alien said slowly, if we join your war and fight beside you, what happens after? Assuming we win, assuming the harvesters are defeated, what then? Chen did not hesitate. Then we rebuild, together. We create something new. Not a consortium that hides and fears, but an alliance that stands and fights. We explore the galaxy not as prey, but as equals. We make sure that nothing like the harvesters ever threatens our children again. And if we lose, Chen shrugged, then we die. But we die on our feet, with weapons in our hands, fighting for something that matters. Is that not better than dying on your knees? Velketh stepped forward before Voreth could respond. He had been silent long enough. He had watched and waited and hoped that someone else would speak the words that needed to be said. But no one would, so he would. I have served the consortium for 200 years, he said. I have seen us shrink. I have watched us give away pieces of ourselves to buy another decade of peace. I have told myself that it was necessary, that survival was more important than pride. He turned to face the crowd, his old eyes burning with new fire. I was wrong. Survival without dignity is not survival. It is just slow death. The humans offer us something we have not had in 10,000 years, a chance to be more than victims, a chance to fight back. He raised his clawed hand high. I vote yes. The consortium will stand with humanity. We will fight the harvesters, and we will win or die together. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, other hands began to rise. One by one, the leaders of the consortium made their choice. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. Enough to change everything. Admiral Chen watched the votes with something like surprise on her face. She had expected more argument, more resistance. She had prepared speeches and evidence and threats. But sometimes, Velketh knew, people simply needed someone to show them the way. Thank you, she said quietly, so only he could hear. Do not thank me yet, he replied. We have not won anything. We have only chosen to try. Chen nodded. That is always the hardest part. Together they watched as the consortium took its first steps toward war. The fleet gathered at the edge of the shroud. Yeneth's soul stood on the observation deck of the human flagship Unconquered Sun and tried to count the ships. She gave up after the first 1,000. There were simply too many. Consortium vessels of every shape and size floated beside human warships. The contrast was striking. Consortium ships were beautiful, with smooth curves and elegant lines. They looked like art. Human ships looked like weapons. Sharp angles, thick armor, and guns everywhere. So many guns. First time seeing a human fleet, a voice asked. Yeneth's soul turned to find a human male standing beside her. He was young, with dark hair and a scar that ran across his forehead. He wore a military uniform, but his smile was friendly. I am Lieutenant Morrison, he said. I have been assigned as your guide during the mission. Thank you, Yeneth's soul replied. Yes, it is my first time. I have never seen so many ships. This is not even our full strength. We left half our fleet behind to guard human space. Morrison pointed at a massive vessel in the center of the formation. That is the Eternal Vigilance, flagship of our home defense force. She has been fighting for 80 years without a single defeat. 80 years. A single ship, fighting for longer than some consortium species had existed. Yeneth Sol felt small and young in comparison. How do you do it? She asked. How do you fight for so long without losing hope? Morrison thought about the question. We do not fight for hope, he said finally. We fight because fighting is what we do. It is who we are. I do not understand. Come with me. I will show you. He led her through the corridors of the unconquered sun. The ship was enormous, larger than any consortium vessel Yeneth Sol had ever seen. But it was not empty and cold like she expected. It was alive. They passed a room where children sat at desks, learning from a teacher. The children looked up and waved as Yeneth Sol walked by. Some of them were very young, no more than 5 or 6 years old. You bring children to war? She asked, shocked. We do not bring them to war, Morrison replied. We bring them to life. This is their home. Where else would they be? They continued walking. They passed workshops where people built weapons and repaired armor. They passed kitchens where cooks prepared meals for thousands. They passed a hospital where doctors treated the sick and wounded. They even passed a garden, a small green space filled with plants from Earth. This is not a warship, Yeneth Sol said slowly. This is a city. It is both, Morrison agreed. That is the human way. We do not separate war from life. We cannot. If we did, the war would consume us. We would become nothing but soldiers, fighting until we died. So you bring everything with you. Your families, your children, your gardens. Yes, we fight to protect them. They remind us why we fight. Morrison stopped in front of a large window that looked out at the stars. Your people think we are crazy. They think we are obsessed with war. But the truth is the opposite. We are obsessed with life. We love it so much that we will do anything to protect it. Yeneth Sol looked out at the fleet. Thousands of ships, each one carrying families and children and gardens. Each one a small piece of human civilization, sailing into battle against an enemy that had destroyed countless worlds. We are about to enter the shroud, Morrison said. You will see human space for the first time. I hope you are ready. I do not think anyone can be ready for this. Morrison laughed. You are probably right, but you will survive. That is what humans do. We survive, and we help others survive too. The fleet began to move. Yeneth Sol watched as the darkness of the shroud grew larger and larger in the window. It was like watching a mouth open, ready to swallow them whole. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to escape, to get away from the terrible black void. But she stayed. She gripped the railing with both hands and watched as the unconquered sun entered the darkness. For a moment there was nothing. No light, no stars, no sense of movement. Just absolute perfect black. Yeneth Sol could not even see her own hands in front of her face. Then suddenly they were through. Light exploded around them. Not the cold, distant light of normal space, but warm, bright, living light. Stars burned in every direction, so many that the sky seemed more white than black. Ships filled the space between them, thousands upon thousands of vessels going about their business. Stations the size of moons orbited massive planets. Streams of smaller craft flowed between them like rivers of light. Welcome to human space, Morrison said quietly. Yeneth Sol could not speak. She could only stare. In all her years of studying maps and dreaming of discovery, she had never imagined anything like this. It was not just a civilization, it was an empire. A vast, thriving, impossibly alive empire. How? She finally managed to ask. How did you build all this? One day at a time, Morrison replied. One ship, one station, one colony at a time. We never stopped. We never rested. We knew that someday we would need all of it. The fleet moved deeper into human space. Yeneth Sol saw things she could not explain. Ships that seemed to bend light around themselves. Weapons platforms the size of asteroids. Artificial suns that provided heat and light to worlds that should have been frozen and dead. And everywhere she looked, she saw people. Humans living their lives, working and playing and loving and fighting. They were not soldiers waiting for war. They were a civilization that had made war a part of itself, the way other species made art or music or trade. There, Morrison said, pointing at something in the distance. Yeneth Sol looked. At first, she could not understand what she was seeing. It looked like a storm of fire, a swirling mass of explosions and burning debris. Then she realized the scale of it. The storm was larger than a solar system. The explosions were entire fleets being destroyed. The Battle of the Threshold, Morrison said. We have been fighting there for 3 years. The harvesters are trying to break through to your space. We are stopping them. 3 years? Yes, they send more ships. We destroy them. They send more. We destroy those too. It never ends. But we never stop either. Yeneth Sol watched the distant battle and felt something change inside her. Fear, yes, but also something else. Admiration, awe. These humans, these soft and fragile creatures, had been fighting a war for 50 years against an enemy that should have destroyed them, and they were winning. Why do you do it? She asked. Why fight so hard for so long? Morrison looked at her with those strange human eyes, brown and small and somehow filled with more emotion than she had ever seen in any alien face. Because if we do not fight, everything dies, he said. Our children, our gardens, our songs and stories and dreams, everything that makes life worth living. The harvesters want to take all of it. They want to turn the galaxy into a silent, empty grave. He turned back to the window, watching the distant fire of war. We will not let them, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many of us have to die. We will fight until they are gone or we are. There is no other choice. Yeneth Sol stood beside him and watched the battle rage. She thought about her maps, her careful drawings of stars and systems. They seemed so small now, so incomplete. The humans had shown her something new, something terrifying and beautiful and true. The galaxy was not a place of peace, it was a place of war, and the only way to survive was to fight. She was ready to learn how. The Battle of the Threshold lasted 19 days. Yeneth Sol lived through every one of them. She watched from the observation deck of the unconquered sun as the largest battle in galactic history unfolded before her eyes. She saw things that would stay with her forever. Ships exploding like tiny suns. Weapons that tore holes in the fabric of space itself. Soldiers fighting and dying by the millions. And through it all, the humans never stopped. When one ship fell, 2 more took its place. When a weapons platform was destroyed, engineers built another one while the battle raged around them. When commanders died, new commanders stepped forward without hesitation. It was like watching a machine made of flesh and blood and unbreaking will. The harvesters fought with equal determination. Their ships were massive, dark things that seemed to absorb light. They did not communicate or negotiate. They simply destroyed everything in their path. For millions of years, they had been the ultimate predators of the galaxy. Nothing had ever stopped them before. Nothing until now. On the 15th day, the consortium fleet finally arrived at the battle zone. Velketh watched from his flagship as thousands of allied ships joined the fight. It was the first time in 10,000 years that the consortium had raised weapons against the harvesters. The first time they had chosen to fight instead of bow. The human admiral, Chen, appeared on his communication screen. She looked tired. Her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But she was smiling. "Welcome to the party, Ambassador," she said. "We came as fast as we could," Velketh replied. "What do you need us to do?" "The harvesters are weakening. Their main command ship is trying to retreat. If we can destroy it, their whole fleet will fall apart." Velketh looked at the tactical display. The command ship was enormous, larger than a small moon. It was protected by hundreds of smaller vessels. Getting to it would be almost impossible. "How do we reach it?" Chen's smile grew wider. "We have a plan, but it requires your ships to hold the line while ours punch through. You want us to be the shield while you are the sword." "Yes. Can you do it?" Velketh thought about all the years he had spent negotiating instead of fighting, all the compromises he had made, all the dignity he had surrendered. He was too old to be a warrior. His body was weak, his reflexes slow, but his heart was strong. "We can do it," he said. "We will hold." The final assault began at dawn on the 19th day. Human ships formed into a massive wedge, driving toward the Harvester command vessel. Consortium ships spread out behind them, blocking every attempt by the enemy to flank or surround. Yineth Sol watched the battle from a position near the back of the fleet. Lieutenant Morrison stood beside her, explaining what was happening. His voice was calm, almost casual, even as explosions filled the viewscreen. "The Harvesters are trying to protect their command ship," he said. "They are pulling ships from other sectors. That means our allies can push forward on the flanks. What happens if the command ship escapes?" "It will not escape." Morrison pointed at a group of human ships racing ahead of the main formation. "Those are our fastest attack vessels. They will reach the command ship before it can run." The attack ships hit the Harvester defenses like a hammer hitting glass. Yineth Sol watched in amazement as the small human vessels tore through enemies 3 times their size. They did not fight with elegance or grace. They fought with brutal efficiency, targeting weak points and vital systems with deadly accuracy. One by one, the defending ships fell. The command vessel tried to turn, tried to flee, but it was too slow. The human attack ships surrounded it like predators bringing down prey. Then the unconquered sun fired. Yineth Sol had never seen a weapon like it, a beam of pure energy, so bright that she had to look away. It struck the Harvester command ship dead center and did not stop. It burned through armor that had survived 10,000 years of war. It reached the reactor at the ship's core, and something fundamental broke. The explosion was visible across the entire system, a wave of light and fire that consumed everything within 1,000 kilometers. When it faded, the Harvester command ship was gone, completely destroyed. Nothing left but cooling debris and silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the remaining Harvester ships began to drift. They stopped firing. They stopped moving. Without their command vessel, they were nothing but empty shells. "We won," Morrison said quietly. "We actually won." Yineth Sol did not respond. She was crying. She had not even realized it until she felt the tears running down her face. They had won. After 10,000 years of fear and tribute and slow death, someone had finally stood up to the Harvesters and won. The celebrations lasted for days. Ships from both fleets gathered together, their crews meeting and celebrating and mourning the dead. Yineth Sol learned that the human fleet had lost over 1,000 ships and millions of soldiers. The consortium had lost nearly as many. It was a terrible price, but it was paid and the enemy was broken. Admiral Chen met with Velketh on the observation deck of the unconquered sun. The two leaders stood side by side looking out at the stars. The shroud was still visible in the distance, a wall of darkness against the light. "What happens now?" Velketh asked. "Now we rebuild," Chen replied. "We bury our dead and repair our ships and prepare for whatever comes next." "And the shroud? Will you keep it?" Chen thought about the question. "No, I do not think so. It was built to hide us, to protect us while we grew strong. But we do not need to hide anymore. It is time to take it down and see what else is out there." Velketh felt a strange emotion. Not fear, not anymore. Something brighter, something that felt like hope. "The Council has voted," he said. "We want to join you, not just as allies, but as partners. We want to build something new together." Chen turned to look at him. Her eyes were tired but warm. "That is what we have always wanted. Not to rule the galaxy, but to protect it. To make sure that nothing like the Harvesters ever threatens anyone again. It will take time. We have time. For the first time in our history, we have all the time we need." 1 year later, Yineth Sol stood in the council chamber before the new Grand Cartography. It was larger than the old one, spanning 12 kilometers and still growing. It showed not just consortium space, but human space too. Stars that had been hidden for 3 centuries now blazed with light, and beyond them, in every direction, there were new territories to explore, new stars to map, new civilizations to discover. The galaxy had always been larger than anyone imagined. Now finally they were ready to see all of it. She reached out and touched the hologram where the shroud had once been. A simple marker glowed there, a memorial to everything that had changed. It read, "Here ended fear. Here began the future." She smiled and began to work. There were so many new maps to make. The war was over. The harvesters were gone. The consortium and humanity were building a new alliance that would span the galaxy. But Yineth Sol knew that this was not the end. It was only the beginning, because the darkness had never been a wall. It had been a door, and now that door was open, and the universe waited to be discovered. She picked up her tools and started drawing. The first line of a new map, the first step of a new journey, the first day of a new age. Behind her, through the great windows of the council chamber, stars burned bright and endless. The future had arrived, and it was beautiful.